Good evening. Welcome back. We are at the point in our evening where we have our workshop session. All council members are present. It is 6:01 p.m. And the first presentation that we're going to have this evening is by the founder and chief equity officer of the Partnership for Southern Equity, Nathaniel Smith, Jr., on the organization's position on equitable development, health, energy, and economic inclusion. Welcome, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mayor Broom, for this opportunity to share about the Partnership for Southern Equity's efforts and also hopefully assist Clayton County in thinking through your path, your journey towards creating a more inclusive and just city. So I'll try my best to go through the presentation as deliberately as I can. And I'm not necessarily sure whether you want to wait until the end of my presentation for Q&A, or I'm more than happy to follow your lead as it relates to how you want to proceed.
I think if everyone holds their questions to the end and lets you get through your presentation, we can do it that way.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Okay, so let's go to the first slide. And this is just a representation of our senior leadership at the organization. Great, committed leaders who are doing a great bit of work in the various areas that we are focused on. I will be the primary person presenting. But in addition to my participation, we also have Christina Cummings, who serves as the Partnership for Southern Equity's VP of Operations, who I believe is on the call as well as Jessica Daniels, who leads our Just Solutions arm, as well as our Yes for Equity. And you can see a photo of her here. Next slide. So just as a quick commercial, the Partnership for Southern Equity is a nonprofit mission-driven organization that is working not only in the city of Atlanta, the region of Georgia, but also in the southern region to promote racial equity and shared prosperity for all in the growth of Metro Atlanta in the South. There are four primary areas that we focus on. Our Just Energy portfolio focuses on the opportunities and challenges associated with climate, change, and also energy equity. We also do a great deal of work around equitable growth and development. That is our Just Growth portfolio. We also do work in the space around economic inclusion, which is our Just Opportunity portfolio. And then we have our final portfolio, which is our Just Health portfolio, which focuses on health equity. Next slide. So we do have a way of doing the work that we do as an organization. We believe that by focusing on transforming systems and people, that we have an opportunity to create the type of communities that all people deserve. We lead our work with an understanding and really a humility around understanding the role of race and racial injustice in how we have emerged as a community and how we continue to be affected by the way that we continue to evolve and grow in terms of land use, economics, and other decisions, and how race has played a role in a lot of those decisions. We believe in the power of relationships. Of course, big data and also big resources are important, but we do believe that big relationships are just as important. We also believe in weaving together an ecosystem of leaders and partners that work with us to move our work forward. We believe, of course, that the work should be grounded in communities of color and low wealth communities. We believe that many of the solutions that we're looking for are closest to the people that are closest to the problem. And they also are closest to the solution. So we want to try to do what we can to engage those communities. And of course, also we do a great deal of work, and that work is always informed by data and research. Next slide. So in our theory of engagement, which is another critical, important part of our work, we do, as I started before in the way that we do the work, we believe that the agency of marginalized residents directly impacted by the challenges that we are facing in communities must be activated and engaged in the decision making from the beginning, middle, and end of civic processes in communities. We also believe that public policies and civic practices are more impactful when they are informed and shaped by the wisdom and experiences of those marginalized communities. And last but certainly not least, we believe that vigorous community engagement and again, agency cultivation will create the conditions for new leaders, new civic infrastructure, and policy innovations that can emerge to realize better outcomes for all in the South. Next slide. So, one of the other things that we wanted to do in our talk is to make sure that there is clarity, crystal clarity around, well, what do you mean by equity? And so we wanted to provide first a definition of equity, which on this slide, our definition is to create the conditions that enable just and fair inclusion. So the definition of equity for the Partnership for Southern Equity is just and fair inclusion into a society in which all can participate and prosper and reach their full potential. So at the end of the day, it's about removing barriers, removing anything that may be in the way of all individuals in your community from having an opportunity to reach their full potential. On many occasions, people have used a third of this particular pictorial to really articulate the difference between equity and equality, where and of course, I would be remiss if I did not say that, unfortunately, a lot of times people conflate equity and equality, and they're not the same. And so, we've used this, and many people have used this as an example to show equality. People of different sizes trying to look over a box, and of course, you can't see it because they're all at a different height level. Equity, making sure that people have the right box so they can watch the game. But the key part of that is that for the Partnership for Southern Equity, there's a third example, and that is reality. That there are some people in our communities that don't have solid ground to stand on, while there are other individuals in our community that have more than enough boxes. The question is, how can we make sure that we create, again, a society where people have solid footing, while at the same time we are able to articulate to those that have as many boxes that they need, that their destiny is connected to those individuals who don't have a solid ground to stand on. And so for us, that is the work. The work is also about making sure that people understand that equity is not just a what, but a way. That it's not just about outcomes and outputs, but it's also about how can we choose to work together on what we call an equity journey towards the type of changes that we need to see in the community. Next slide. So we wanted to also just provide a data story for the conversation ahead. As you continue to think through the work that could potentially be organized and facilitated in College Park. One of my favorite sayings is by a gentleman by the name of Daniel Patrick Moynihan. He said that you are entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. And for us, we believe that. And so, the most critical foundation of any work, in my opinion, are facts. And so we want to provide some data and facts for you all this afternoon. So if we can go to the first slide, the next slide rather. So, and you can just hit it one more time if you don't mind. So this is just a breakdown of some of the challenges that we're facing in the American South. This is a heat map created by Raj Chetney that really lays out some of the challenges that we face as a result of the economic inequities that we have. This slide and this chart in particular shows the challenges that we're facing around the lack of economic mobility for poor kids. And just to give you the cliff notes, dark red is really bad. And basically that means that the American South has major problems as relates to working to ensure that the American dream is real for all of us. Even our capital city, which is not too far from you, the city of Atlanta, we have the worst problem in that a poor child in the city of Atlanta only has a 4% chance to rise out of poverty. And so, as you can see from that chart, Many other places around the South have that same issue. There are no minimum wage laws in many places in the South. Of course, our minimum wage in Georgia is extremely low. I think it may be like a little over $4 an hour. And if you can hit it again, please, if you don't mind. Low rates of labor coming together to work with the private sector to ensure that people are getting paid a livable wage. Again, major issues in the South around that. Next slide. And so there are many challenges associated with health equity in the South. We also have major issues as relates to health. And unfortunately, again, we are behind other regions in the country around life expectancy. The least healthy states in the US are in the South. Next slide. More than any other region of the South has high rates of infant mortality, obesity, diabetes, cancer deaths. Of course, in Georgia, our infant mortality rate for a couple of years ago was 49 out of 50. I don't know where we are today. Also, we have 15% of non-elderly. If you can go back, thank you. 15% of non-elderly adults in the South are uninsured. The average in the U.S. life expectancy for a white person is 5 years longer than that of a Black person. So again, major issues as it relates to health. Next slide. We also have major issues around Black home ownership. Home ownership has been the primary place that African Americans and other people, but in particular, African Americans have been in a position to accumulate wealth. Because of some of the challenges that I said before around economic mobility, home ownership, because of structural challenges, the African American community and other communities of color have not been able to fully benefit from the economic opportunities that we have in this country. And so home ownership has been really the default in many ways for communities of color to accumulate wealth. Major issues around Black home ownership. And now we see that in many of the places where African Americans have owned homes, we're seeing major challenges around gentrification and displacement, and also in terms of mobility, as you can see here as well, the southern states in transit. And of course, thank goodness College Park does not have that challenge because you have a train station. But regionally, there's still major problems around creating a comprehensive transit system in our region. Next slide. So, I can't, of course, provide this information without also talking about the challenges that are related to climate. 5 states with the highest low income energy burden are Mississippi, South Carolina, Alabama, Georgia, and Arkansas. That means that poor people in these cities or states, for this particular data point, are paying more as a percentage of their income for energy than any other place in the country. And again, that has a great deal to do with not only with some of the changes that are happening as it relates to our climate, but also substandard housing, people living in housing that is not energy efficient and weatherized, and other major challenges that have created the conditions for many of our low income residents to pay a large percentage, larger than usual, of their income on energy costs. Next slide. Next click. African Americans spend almost twice as much per square foot on energy as their white counterparts. Again, real challenges around being in a position to afford energy. As you can see, that you have some people that are paying over 15% of their income on utility costs, which means that on many occasions they're being forced to choose between buying groceries or paying their light bill. There are ways to get through this, but this is a harsh reality for many people who live in our region, and in particular in places that are closest to Clayton County. Next slide. I meant College Park, forgive me. So we also have, we also wanted to provide the Child Wellbeing Index for College Park. We wanted to provide some real specific data and information. I know that there were some questions, Madam Mayor, about one of the particular data points, and we wanted to make sure that we were clear that this came from the 2019 census. Again, you can see some of the challenges that we face around equity in in College Park in particular. Of course, the population from 2019 statistics, 79.7% Black, 4.2 Hispanic, 9% Asian, but 13% white. But again, even with that, the median income, even in terms of families living in poverty, where in the Black community, you have 34.43% of families living in poverty, while only 13% of white families are living in poverty. The unemployment rate, 7.8% for the Black community, 3.7% for the white community. Of course, you have 8% for the Hispanic community in terms of unemployment. So again, there are, even with certain segments of the community being large, like the Black community in College Park, there's still major challenges as it relates to poverty rate, unemployment rate. High school looks pretty good, but median income. Are there opportunities to create economic development strategies and other strategies that will ensure that those populations, as College Park continues to grow and become the great city that it is, that they'll have a chance to benefit from those changes and even more so contribute to them in a positive way? Next slide. So when we talk about racial equity, and again, with this work session, we wanted to provide some specific definitions that you can utilize, because we did not want to get caught up in people's perceptions or assumptions about what we were talking about. So when we talk about racial equity, all we're really saying is, can we work together to create a community, a neighborhood, a region where a person's skin color does not have dominant influence over a person's life outcomes, that that a person is no more or less likely to experience society benefits or burden just because of the color of their skin. And unfortunately, the data is showing that that is not necessarily the case right now. And we have an opportunity to work towards realizing this goal, but we have to begin to work together in order to make this happen. And we know from the data that people of color, in particular Black people, are more likely to experience worse outcomes than white people across a broad range of areas, whether it be health, economic growth, housing, employment opportunities, law enforcement, and education. We cannot turn away from this truth of reality any longer. And I think that there's an opportunity for us to work together to change that. And that is why we hope that the conversation that I'm helping to facilitate today will help you begin to think about this, not as something that you should run from, but to actually use this as an opportunity to begin to assess and analyze where you are as a city, and to begin to think about ways that and policies and strategies that can be implemented to move everyone forward in College Park, and not just a certain segment of the population. Next slide. So, for us, in many, many ways, and I think we've learned this through the challenges that we face around COVID, where we've experienced a disproportionate impact of COVID on the Black community, in particular, in terms of morbidity rates, the challenges that we face in many Black communities that experience food deserts, where it's easier to find a honey bun than a head of lettuce, or some of the challenges that we have around walkability, that all of those various things affect the life outcomes. And that at the end of the day, if you peel back the onion and move past the results of the central problem, we are able to understand in many ways how racism is a social determinant, and that the history of that in the South and it has helped certain segments of the community and disproportionately hurt other segments of the community. And that history of structural racism is embedded and connected to many of the key areas of our culture, our civic life, our environment, our economy, and our health systems. And so in order for us to create a more just society, we have to begin the process of understanding that truth and beginning the process of engaging around these key issues. Next
Mr.
slide.
Smith, I don't want to break up your flow here, but we got about 9 minutes left, and want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to ask questions too. So
okay, so what we'll do, thank you, Mayor. So what we'll do is actually, if you don't mind skipping, I wanted to make sure that these questions will help to guide some of the things to consider. So, how will College Park review and address the city's internal policies, procedures, and programs in ways that will ensure equitable outcomes? How can College Park assess the city's departments, authorities, boards, and commissions, and make sure that you're ready to address some of the challenges that I've talked about? What is there potentially an organized internal group of stakeholders that can help you drive and help to facilitate these questions and find answers? Are there professional development opportunities that can be leveraged in order for you all to have a chance to elevate your consciousness around some of the things that I've talked about? Next slide. Looking at data, critical and important, related to the services in order for you to understand the challenges around equity in the city of College Park. How will you assess the financial resources and in particular, your public finance policies, your authorities and departments to determine whether those funds are being distributed equitably? And even more so, how are you engaging young people around advancing racial equity and begin the process of getting them involved? So I will, if you go to the next slide, we can stop here. I'm just going to leave that here. These are just some examples of the work that we've been able to do in other places around the state. But I'll stop here, Mayor, just in case folks have questions. And again, I just want to thank you, Mayor, and the City Council for providing an opportunity for us, again, to just be helpful and hopefully provide some things for the council to think about. I'm just honored to have a chance to share and are just looking forward to an opportunity to have a conversation and be helpful in any way we can.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I appreciate your time and your presentation. Councilman Clay is already unmuted, so I'm going to assume that he's got a question. Is that right?
Yeah, I did. Well, I got an answer to my first question on where the statistics came from. So I'm real quick. We don't have a lot of time, but my question has to do with two things. One, how long has your organization been in existence? And how many, I presume you work with clients to assist them with this. Ultimately, this is a business. So how long? And I know one of your clients apparently is East Point. And the second question is, what are the leverage points that you use to affect change? For example, just giving everybody $500 or everybody who is different color of skin $500 could be a leverage point, but I'm not sure how far that's going to go.
Right.
Education for me is the most fundamental point of all to affect the culture, family culture, and so forth. So where do you target to apply pressure to make change?
So I'll answer your first question. So the Partnership for Southern Equity has been around for 10 years. We're celebrating our 10th anniversary actually this year. So we've been at it for a little while. In terms of our clients and people that we work, so I do want to be clear to say that we are a nonprofit organization, which means that our mission really takes precedence over profit. Because of our funding and funding structure, it's not necessarily the fees that drive our engagement in communities, even though we do get a fee. So I want to be clear about that. Also, in terms of our client base, of course, you can see the city of East Point. We're working in Albany, Brunswick, Savannah. We've also worked with the Healthcare Georgia Foundation in 11 counties around the state of Georgia. We've worked with the Atlanta Regional Commission and others, to really help think through many of these challenges. And in my last answer to your last question about what do we leverage, I think there are many, many leveraging points. The first always is around what I call helping to cultivate the civic infrastructure of communities, right? How do we find ways to actually activate the community in a way where they're actively engaged in decision making? So for example, in East Point, we convened a East Point Leaders for Equity program where we trained for 8 months key leaders in the community about how to engage in communities in ways that will encourage more inclusive outcomes. There are also, of course, ways through public policy that you can also influence opportunities for communities. How are you leveraging your public financing? If you're doing bonds, or if you're doing tax increment financing or enterprise zones, how are you utilizing that public money as a way to ensure that communities are getting a return on that investment, right? Or, you know, at the end of the day, your procurement and contracting policies. Are you, when you contract or procure businesses, are you working to ensure that those businesses are diverse, are also consist of communities of color, and also other communities that may have been left out in the past? So there are many, many, many ways that you can go towards ensuring that you are realizing ethical outcomes. For me, it's about authentic community engagement, leveraging public policy, leveraging public finance, and also leveraging the contracting and the procurement process. Those are just some of the ways that you can work to influence and encourage equity.
Any additional questions for Mr. Smith?
I'll let somebody else go.
All right. Well, I did have a question for you. And I know that one of the things that we have seen challenges with is one of the things that you addressed pretty early on, engaging marginalized residents, because we have a fairly high population of people who are of units in our community that are renter occupied and more transitory than some homeowners in the community. And can you talk a little bit about some of the strategies that you've used in other communities to reach people who may not necessarily be part of the process all the time? Yes. And how we work better to engage them?
So a lot of times, you know, it's number one about a mindset, right? It's actually looking at, again, as I said before, those residents as a part of the solution, right? That their experiences, their qualitative understanding of the challenges they're facing. They may not know the statistics that I presented, but they know what it means to have to pay an exorbitant amount for their light bills, right? How do we make sure that their wisdom and their experiences, their lived experiences, are a key component of the policymaking process? Well, as you said before, Mayor Broom, it's about authentic community engagement. So for us, because time is so valuable for many of those communities, we have to make sure that they're getting return of their time investment in engaging in the work that we're doing. So it may include, again, as I said before, our leadership development program, where we actually provide a stipend for community leaders to actually participate in our leadership development programs. It could also be, you know, about us going into communities. Like, for example, we have an initiative in the past called More Money, More Power, where we've actually engaged communities and educated them about utilities and where energy comes from, and how can they be more effective in managing their money around paying their energy bills. So education is another key component of the process. Leadership development, as I said before, is another key component of the process. You know, this may also sound rudimentary, but also you got to feed people, right? You got to make sure that when people are coming and they're choosing to spend time and learn about what you are working to lift up, you've got to make sure, again, that they're benefiting in some way. So food has also been an aspect of our engagement work that we've learned that has really been helpful in engaging communities, as well as providing some type of stipend, you know, for their time and for their wisdom, you know, is also a very key and important component of the work that we do. In terms of the design of engagement, I mean, we've gone from regional engagement conversations around public transportation in the region, to broader forums where folks have come in and actually participated in smaller kind of breakout sessions. We also use a great deal of strategic questioning in order to get people's minds going and allow them to provide feedback around critical issues. We've also utilized survey instruments, clicker technology, of course, with COVID-19. We've had to learn to use Zoom and also Jamboard as other ways to kind of engage communities. So it's pretty diverse, Mayor. We just really have tried our best to meet the community where they are and really do as much as we can to ensure that, number one, people believe that we value their engagement. And at the same time, we also value their wisdom as well.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Smith?
I just have one comment, Mayor. Several of the things that you said, I know I've tried, and I may not be the right color, but
no,
I have.
You are. I think we all have an opportunity. Yeah.
Things like energy audits. I've tried to. I have the housing authority in my ward, so I've tried to encourage going to their meetings for them to take advantage of free energy audits that are put on by our power department. We've talked about urban farm. We brought an urban farm into the city. We've talked about classes on how to grow your own food. So there's a number of initiatives. I'd love to talk to you about them sometime, but there are a number of initiatives that we have done that just haven't had the response to reach critical mass, if you know what I mean. Yes, a few people will take advantage, but you're not really accomplishing things. That's how that's something I'd like to hear at some point in time, if you become involved with us, how you're going to make that happen.
Well, if I may say two quick things, I think
quickly.
Quickly, 2 seconds. Community engagement is critical and important. 2, audits are good, but if the community can't afford to actually take the advice of the audits and be in a position to make their homes more energy efficient, then an audit is just an audit. So we've got to think about ways to move beyond audits and actually create funding opportunities that communities can use to make their homes more energy efficient and weatherized.
Mr. Smith, thank you so much. It sounds like we have more to discuss. And we didn't even hit individuals with disabilities. I know is a touch point on your presentation, and I'm so glad because I think that we need to broaden the conversation to include individuals with disabilities, because it's like 1 in 4 people in our community. So right. Appreciate your time. Is there consensus from the body that we want to continue a conversation with Mr. Smith and PSE?
I know I would like to.
Yeah, I'd like to continue a conversation and see where we go from there. Yes.
Councilman Gay?
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to continue a conversation.
Councilman Taylor?
He's muted.
Yep.
Muted.
Yes, I would like to have a further conversation.
Okay. All right. So we will we'll continue talking about next steps. And again, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Look forward to talking to you all soon. Take care.
Have a great evening. Thank you. All right. Item number 2 is presentation by ADP for payroll processing services for the City of College Park. Dr. Baker, I think you're going to be heading this one up and introducing our next speaker.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you all know, the City of College Park Office of Human Resources provide payroll services to all city employees on a biweekly basis and to the Mayor and Council on a monthly basis. At this time, we'll have a presentation from Andrew Dixon as it relates to the services for payroll that ADP can provide for us. Mr. Dixon, you have the floor.
Thanks, Dr. Baker. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. So council people and mayor, just want to start by saying thank you very much for your time today. Really appreciate the opportunity to tell you all a little bit more about ADP and answer any questions that you all might Did also want to just quickly apologize. We had our invite a little crossed at 6:30, and so I want to apologize for any inconvenience that may have caused you all in the order of operations, if you will. One thing I've learned at ADP is we're kind of always ready to jump in, so no worries, and look forward to sharing a little bit of information with y'all.
Mr. Dixon, you're right on time. There was no interruption at all.
Wonderful. Even maybe I shouldn't have even said anything then. All right, I'm going to share. Oh, never mind. Dr. Baker's driving it for us. So
share now, Mr. Dixon.
Okay. Let me share. Can everyone see our title slide okay?
Not yet.
There we go.
See if I can get out of presentation mode. My apologies for the convenience. All right, we're gonna rock with it right here if that's okay with everyone. Okay, so quick intros, I'll handle it. My name again is Andrew Dixon. I've been with ADP for almost 5 years now, initially in an individual contributing role, and now I'm a sales executive that manages one of the 2 ADP sales teams out of our major account division. Also with me today, I have Ted Smith, who is a rep on my team here to support the conversation, and then PK Howard, who is one of our most tenured business consultants at ADP and really helps keep the salespeople honest and really drive home the technical side of the sales evaluation. And so excited to share a little bit more today. On the call today, I'm going to quickly go over an overview of our solution, give you all a quick snapshot into what the technology looks like, as well as give a quick overview into implementation and service, and then open up for next steps and any questions that you all may have. Apologies. This is a quick kind of overview of ADP, of who we serve for those that may not be as familiar with us. So we serve 80% of Fortune 500 clients. We pay 1 in 5 Americans, which comprises of over 30 million US employees in over 140 countries. So to say we've got some experience in payroll and HR technology would be a little bit of an understatement, and gonna really drive some of that information home for you today. Here you can see a platform overview. So the solution that we proposed for City of College Park is ADP Workforce Now technology. It is a single unified database that comprises of all the modules that you see within that screen there, from payroll to compensation management. I like to explain it as everything that touches the employee life cycle, from recruitment to retirement and everywhere in between. It services over 2.5 million daily users. And what you can see on the right side of the screen is a snapshot into our ADP mobile app, which has 4.7 star rating, is constantly in the top 10 of all business apps. And for anyone that's used it, it's a great tool. It can really help empower employees as well as the organization. This is a screenshot of our ADP Workforce Now portal homepage. And I'm going to go through these screenshots a little quickly for sake of time, as I want to make sure that you all have enough time for questions. But here you can see a completely configurable, customizable dashboard. It's in tile format, so you can select the different tiles that you want to be the home screen for the given user, whether that be an employee or a manager, each of which can have different views. So you'll see there on the screen a couple of examples, if you will, from quick links to your top right, any news that you would like to post to keep everyone up to date, and then some tools around time off, companies' insights that we can provide back to you in terms of data, as well as org charting as well. Here you'll see a screenshot of our ADP Workforce Now payroll, GL, and tax. So a little bit of a busy screen here if you're not living in the payroll world, but really what you want to understand is it's all on one screen, enables you to really review the activity that has occurred within a given pay period, along with a real-time preview. You'll see there on the right. And another snapshot kind of giving you a little bit more insight into the visibility from gross to net payroll, and then the ability to compare a payroll from one previously to one current. So as you can see, a drop down there in the middle of the screen, that would enable you to compare it to any past payroll. One more snapshot on payroll, and then we'll move on to the next module. But again, just the ability to dig in from a number of areas, additional information, all on one screen to really help improve the visibility and access to information. You can dig down into hours, earnings, deductions, taxes, memos, and there on the right side of the screen, you'll see a list of standard reports that that many of our clients have found very useful. And so we'll go ahead and keep those most used reports there for quick reference. And again, we're going to assume the liability for everything that you see listed here, from W-2s to quarterly 940, 941s, employee withholdings, new hire reporting, as well as wage garnishments. And we've been doing it for 65 years, so we've got a ton of experience, and you can have ultimate confidence that your employees are going to get paid on time, the right amount, and any issues that may arise, I'm going to walk you through towards the end how you're going to have confidence in the service model that will help address any issues. From an HR and compliance standpoint, this is a snapshot from the ability to manage statutory compliance. Here you'll see Anthony Albright, who was a previous ADP VP, become kind of famous through our technology demos, if you will, but it just gives you a little insight into the different information that you can house for each individual employee, whether personal or sensitive information, and with user level access, you can determine who can see what information. And I'm open if anyone does have questions. Otherwise, again, for the sake of time, I'll keep moving through the different aspects of the demo screenshots and then can take any questions at the end. One more screenshot of HR and compliance from an employee profile standpoint. This is what we call the talent profile. Again, gives visibility and ability to track license and certifications, training, skills, even things like t-shirt size and birthdays, easily reportable, and all housed in one place to ensure that all of your employee information and data is kept together. Notifications are available for items that have an expiration date, whether it was a certification or something that was a requirement of a specific job duty. Here you'll see a little preview of our onboarding process. It is available via mobile, tablet, or PC. And our onboarding process really helps to drive home what it means to be an employee of the City of College Park from the first time they fill out or from the first time they complete that onboarding experience. Getting rid of some of those stacks of paper and kind of getting together for a long time with your HR manager and helps really automate that process to make it more interactive. You have the ability to send this prior to an employee's first day so that they can knock out a lot of these required documents prior, or still walk them through a normal onboarding process in person through alongside an HR manager. But again, they can take care of all of this via mobile or desktop or PC. This is what it would look like from the employee experience standpoint. So there'll be a welcome screen and then a video, which you all can utilize to highlight either aspects of the job or the city, paperwork, company information, a few different components that can really help to improve the onboarding experience as a whole. From a performance management standpoint, here you'll see a snapshot of a performance management dashboard. Allows managers to maintain employee reviews that might need attention, has the ability to send out email notifications when due so that it'll alert when a review is upcoming or required. And then managers as well as employees will have access to historical reviews if they wanted to go back in order to kind of manage and monitor progress according to goals, and then also have the ability to tie that into compensation. Here's another snapshot from performance. This shows a summary of an annual evaluation and gives a little bit of insight into the process. This can include employee self-appraisals, manager and peer involvement, so they communicate utilizing the tool as well. And we found that this really can help improve the process of what a lot of our clients were previously just doing annual or biannual reviews. Really helps improve this process and kind of give a little bit more stake for the employee, and it makes it easier for them to manage their progress as compared to any goals that they've been laid out for their specific job. And this one, it's a little bit of an eye chart. So very much better shows in our live demonstration